For as long as anyone can remember, the Joestar family bloodline has always been a bit bizarre. This bizarreness can be traced back all the way to the streets of Victorian England, or rather, the Rocky Mountain trails surrounding it. Their troubles all began on a day in 1868, when a wealthy nobleman, George Joestar, and his wife and child went on a carriage ride that had unfortunately crashed, resulting in the death of his wife and the maiming of George and his son. In the resulting crash, the wreckage was robbed by a petty thief, Dario Brando. However, George woke up and mistook Dario for someone trying to save his life. As such, George felt indebted to Dario, and so over 12 years later, right before his passing, Dario had told his son, who was secretly the one behind his murder, to take advantage of the debt. Thus, Dio arrived at the Joestar mansion, where George had made him one of his own. Little did George know that he had been responsible for creating one of his family's, and possibly the universe's greatest enemies, Dio. But luckily, Dio's plot to murder his new foster father were foiled by Jonathan, a self-proclaimed gentleman, who Dio may or may not have tortured for the last 7 years, thanks to the help of the interfering robber Dio Speedwagon. Before Dio was arrested for his crimes, however, he pulled out his plan B, an ancient stone mask that supposedly turned one into a vampire. Dio quickly murdered George, and proceeded to put on the mask. No, not that one. Dio had casted aside his humanity entirely, but once again, Jonathan would pull through and defeat Dio once more with an ancient martial art that harnessed the power of the sun, Hammon. Things unfortunately went south once again, as Dio lived with nothing but a severed head remaining. He sent an army of zombies to attack the cruise ship Jonathan and his wife were being married on, and killed him. Even in his final moments, he still loved Dio throughout everything. While Dio was put to rest for over 100 years, he would eventually resurface in Egypt to attempt once again to take over the world, this time with more than just his vampire powers to help him with that. This time, however, he was defeated once and for all by Jonathan's great-great-grandson, Jotaro Kujo. But Dio's legacy would not die out. Dio fathered many different bastard children during this time. That's right folks, Dio fucked. Among all of them, the one who stood out the most was a troubled boy with a burning passion, Hiruno Shibana. He lived in Japan for the first 4 years of his life, until his mother had remarried to an Italian man, moving them to Italy. Once there, Hiruno did not exactly have the greatest upbringing out there. He was constantly beaten and abused by his drunken father and mercilessly bullied by his peers relentlessly. Hiruno's life changed completely the day he saw a man in a darkened alleyway, one who was clearly in danger. Hiruno felt a connection to the man, and so lied for him, in order to protect his life. From this point on, his father's beatings had ceased, and his classmates were much nicer to him. Turns out the man he had saved was an extremely powerful mafia boss, one of the many in Italy's criminal underbelly. It was here Hiruno found his true meaning, his reason to live, and his unbreakable resolve. From here, he was no longer Hiruno, but rather, Giorno Giovanna.
このジョルノ・ジョバーナには夢がある。
This dream, in particular, was to end the malicious ways of Italy's organized crime and the corrupt men it's comprised of, by starting a taxi service. This was when he met someone all but familiar to the Joestar bloodline, Koichi Hirose. Giorno attempted to rob his luggage, and when Koichi tried to get his stuff back, Giorno revealed his trump card, a stand. A stand is the manifestation of a person's spirit, their inner life force embodied into a physical being that can only be seen by other stand users. These stands come in many shapes and sizes, and more often than not have extremely useful abilities. Thanks to his stand, gold experience, and its ability to manipulate life itself, combined with his limitless resolve and willpower, Giorno would definitely have the power necessary to challenge Italy's criminal underbelly head-on. Alongside Team Bucri Passione, Bruno, Mistap, Narachap, and Abaccio, gangsters who shared Giorno's dream. Gold experience is capable of injecting life into whatever it touches, even inanimate objects. He can manipulate said life as well. He can inject even more life into a living thing, so much so that it forces them to exhaust their life spawn, or in other words, die of old age. He can sense life energy nearby, create clones of people by planting their cells on other objects. Hell, he can even literally bring people back from the dead as zombies. If you're his friend, you're basically fucking immortal. Good thing Giorno isn't fighting a friend. He's fighting someone who's going to try to steal his very heart away from him. A trickster devil who breaks through the very chains of fate itself. Come back soon to hear about Giorno's opponent, Rena Mamiya, codename Joker.